Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's meeting of Canterbury Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee, Thursday the 19th of February 26 at 2 p.m. I warmly welcome you all here today, and as we work through the agenda in front of us. We will begin our agenda today as normal with a Karakia, and James is going to help us through this, but we're Whakatau ki te huru, whakatau ki te tonga, kia ma kina te utu, kia ma taratara ki tai, e he aki ana te akatura, iho, he huka, iho, te hei Māori ora. Thank you. We have received 3 apologies for today. Our first apology from Mayor Phil Major, for Mayor Scott Arneson, but we've got Rit here representing Mackenzie, and Mayor Dan Gordon. Is there any further apologies to receive? Any apologies from the floor? Can I please have a mover and a seconder that we receive those apologies? We don't move and second. Oh, you don't move and second those? Oh, crikey. Okay. Learning all the time. Thank you. So in regard to today's agenda, is there any conflict of interest from members around the table? And we have no public forum or deputation or extraordinary or urgent business that I'm aware of. Is that correct, members? Thank you. So that takes us through to the minutes of our meeting, which are available to you on page 10 in your agenda. They are the minutes of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee as of the 27th of November 2025. You all will have read those minutes, and assuming there are no corrections to those minutes, we have a recommendation in front of us on page 10 of your agenda. Is everybody happy that we receive those minutes as a true and accurate record? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Craig. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion's carried. There's probably no matters arising from those minutes. Thank you. Councillor Sunkel.
Could I raise the matter of the annual plan, which kind of fits within that, and the question that arose, the recommendation to delay establishing a new recovery advisor position due to budgetary constraints and Canterbury Regional Council's wish to keep as low as possible its rate rise. It's a position that was indicated and agreed to be put in place, and then a subsequent conversation has been had to recommend to this committee that it be taken out. I've had a conversation with Stephanie Rexeter, the Chief Executive of Environment Canterbury, and she advises me that she could find a way through to facilitate that position without increasing rates, that she has some capacity within to do it. And aside from that, we have made strong representations in our submission on the Emergency Management Bill, both Environment Canterbury and the group, around the lack of recognition of the recovery positions within civil defence. So lots of work around response and a bunch of things, but seeking some further thought and effort within the bill to recognise recovery. So I just find it a little incongruous that we might choose not to fill a position around recovery, given the subsequent papers within this agenda talking about what we might achieve, having made representation to government on the bill. So I just wonder what people's thoughts might be, or where the appropriate time is to have that conversation. As I say, Chief Executive is happy to facilitate that within the Environment Canterbury budget.
Thank you, John, for your input. We might pick up your recommendation in regard to the report from KEG on page 17 of our report, because that's where the recommendation has come through, and that is the effect of that recovery position that you're speaking about. It's actually the first item on our agenda. Are you comfortable with that?
I was just looking for the front
Yeah, thank you. You happy with that? Yep. Thank you. So if there's no matters arising, we will go to that report now that Councillor Sunkel's just referred to on page 17. And perhaps if I can ask James to speak to that report, and then we'll pick up the thoughts come through from Councillor Sunkel. Thank you.
Thank you. In lieu of Jeff Millwood being here, who was the Deputy Chair of the Coordinating Executive Group and was the Chair for this particular meeting, I'll go through the KEG Chair's report. In here, you'll see that we did elect a new Deputy Chair, and that ended up being Jeff. And then into the annual plan, which is the topic of conversation that Councillor Sunknall just raised. What we were looking for or suggesting was additional positions for lifeline utility coordination, an additional 0.4 FTE to add to our already 0.6 for a mana whenua treaty partnership position, and the recovery advisor position. Just a note that those figures that I've provided there are the sort of the staff-based wages and total overheads, so it's not necessarily the complete impact we see on certainly what is part of the targeted rate, but it does show the cost of those positions. The KEG was not in favour of option A just due to the current financial constraints across councils, as well as the uncertainty in government reform, and they recommended option B. And option B is below the no rates increase, some continued work on the lifelines coordination using some of the surplus that's in our reserve, filling the vacant mana whenua position just with the 0.6 FTE that we've got. I'd likely do that as a contracted position rather than a employment position. And then the recommendation was to delay establishing the recovery advisor position until long-term planning. Obviously, we're going to have more conversation about that. I'll go through the other bits just quickly. The red windstorm warning after action review is included as a decision item, I think, following this particular paper. The emergency management bill submission process is a paper following on that as well. The 6-monthly CDEM welfare report and the annual training report, I've just included copies of those in the agenda rather than going through those individually. I would like to note within the welfare report that we're now sort of shifting our focus after talking to you, I think last time or the time before, about the framework we're using for welfare, to now doing some supporting plans and activities that support the local authorities to develop and deliver and improve their readiness for welfare. So we're starting to move into that space there. That's the essence of that report. And the annual training report covered the positive result of our NZQA external evaluation of the private training establishment. That came through as confident and highly confident, which is good for us. And just a note about the fact that we are very reliant on the National Emergency Management Training Fund that comes from the Tertiary Education Commission. We have raised this before, but just that note that could at any stage during government budgeting processes just disappear. We've been reliant on it now for about 5 or 6 years. It continues to provide the service that we need, but it's not guaranteed, and we just need to keep that in mind. The NEMA report will be covered off later on, the financial report will be covered off later on, and I've got a group controller's report for you later on. So there's some recommendations there, but also we need to take into account what Councillor Sucknall's just raised with us. Thanks, Murray.
Good. Thank you, James. Thank you, James, for that. So I'm opening up for discussion around that. We've heard the context of Councillor Sunkel's discussions with the CE here at Environment Canterbury. Do you want to expand on that information, John, at this point, and then I'll open it up for discussion?
I guess just briefly making some thoughts, and yes, there are still some questions in the 209,000 is a significant amount of money, so salary plus overheads, and whilst we have a significant number in the papers, I would like a clear and concise I guess, description of what that role and what those outcomes are, and ensuring that the outcomes both work within the region and capability and advice that fits with the territorial authorities and the groups as well. So just getting ensure that understanding. One of our challenges is pre-event planning, and so we focus so much on response, getting out there, lights and sirens from my life. But how do we plan for response? What does response look like? And if we don't get the response right, as we have seen in a number of events, we saw that in Gabrielle and other places where there were some real question marks around what response looked like, how transitions, a whole bunch of things that were detrimental to response and to communities down the line. So very clearly in my mind, if you look at government intent and the uplift that they're looking for within the emergency management bill, I believe it's beholding on us to put into place those processes that can further improve our total system and broaden our thinking away from just the response space and into recovery. So those are my opening thoughts. Thank you.
So I'm opening the floor up to consider whether there is some support around that, and then we'll look at inserting the 2.3 perhaps to a new recommendation to be inclusive of that recovery advisor position. So I'm open to the floor to see if there's any questions around that before we get a motion on the table. Thank you.
It just seems contrary to what's written here and that sort of thing. So I just want some assurance that if we say yes, that this position should be filled, that there is no increase in rates, that would have to be an assurance.
Thank you. So John's done some back work on this, so I'm going to ask John to respond around that, to consider the value that position would provide and within an existing budget, which answers your question, Craig.
The specific question I asked the Chief Executive this morning was, we have a rate rise indicated at 2.9%, and what I took from the key papers was that we no one wanted to increase that. The Chief Executive stated quite clearly that she had vacancies and space within her budgets to accommodate this if I wanted it, or we believed it was there in place. So yes, she could accommodate it within the budgets of Environment Canterbury without having to rate further for it.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the paper and the tone that we're provided with, the context from Councillor Sanko, is there anybody willing to look at the recommendation, perhaps inclusive of the change under 2.3 and the recovery manager? If the mover and seconder are willing to make that change now, I will accept that. If not, we will have the motion as recommended, and then we'll do an amendment. So if there's support to what Councillor Sanko was tweaking, I'm happy to take a new motion at this point. So I'll look to you, John. Do you want to move that? Have you got some words around that, or my learned people to my right might give us some words? So the context of that would be that the new recovery manager position will be inserted using existing budget. Is that correct?
Sorry. So we need to move and second the original,
First.
and then Councillor Sanko can move his amendment and second a seconder. And then if the original mover and seconder agree, then
you do. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is very complicated. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder on the recommendation as written in front of you first, and then we'll look for an amendment. Happy to move that as written. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? So Councillor McMillan, thank you. All in agreement to that, please say aye.
Oh, no.
No.
Don't go to the vote.
Don't go to vote? Oh, God, this is way too complicated.
Sorry. So now the amendment.
Now the amendment being, beg your pardon, and then it'll be the substantive motion. Okay, thank you.
I would move an amendment, Chair, to 2.3, that we do in fact establish the recovery position as described in option A.
Okay, so I'm looking for a seconder for that.
I'm happy to put in the rider subject to confirmation by the Chief Executive of Whakakapi.
Thank you. So I need a seconder for that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. So now we're looking to move that as a substantive motive. Is that correction?
So you can check with Mayor Rowley and Mayor McMillan if they agree to that.
Yep.
And if they agree to that, then we can just substitute the motion straight in. Otherwise, it'll go to a
Okay.
vote and people can speak on it.
Okay. So mover and a seconder agree to that.
Yeah, so
Yep.
if the original mover
Oh, so Craig.
agree,
Yep.
we can substitute it in.
You agree. Thank you. Fuel. Okay. Right. We're getting there.
We'll get some wording in. Could we take an adjournment for a few minutes while we just type up some wording?
Okay. I'm really happy to do that. Thank you. We're going to beg your pardon. We have the wording in front of us now, and we just need to get a formal agreement to this.
Yes.
Yep. So, and I'll just put that to the vote. Yes. Correct. So you understand what 2.3 is now. So all in agreement to that, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Any abstentions? That motion's carried. Thank you. Have we completed that task now?
Yes, we can move on to the next page.
Phew. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, John. So that takes us through to page 27 in our report, which is 8.2, and I think we've got Richard. Where's Richard? Here he is. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. So this is about looking at enhancing recovery readiness. we have a recommendation in front of us. So I'll hand that to you, and then we'll get this recommendation on the table. Thank you.
Well, what I was going to say is quite different from given the vote you've just had. So I thank the committee very much for that. I guess the key point, as Councillor Sucknell outlined, and the background to this is, you may recall, for those of you here in August, at the meeting, Jim Palmer coming along and talking about the importance of being ready for recovery, but that it's seldom prioritised. We then prepared the program that's attached in this report, and I think on page 33 of your report, it shows you what we're hoping to achieve, at least in a diagrammatic form. So 2 years ago, or 18 months ago, we were at that blue line in that diagram through a number of initiatives, including working nationally and locally. We're probably where that red line is. And then over the next few years, we're hoping to expand out so that our level of readiness and our ability to mount a good and strong recovery, particularly to a major event, is out where that green line is. So that's what you've just voted for, and I thank you very much for that, and I'm happy to take any questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Richard. Certainly, I'm happy to open it up for questions, and then I'll be looking for the recommendation on 27 in your report. Anything from the floor?
I might just say to you, perhaps the recommendation might need to change, given what you've just put there, because it was looking to include it in the long-term plan, so you've included it in the plan at this stage. So even just perhaps receive the report.
My learned advisor to my right tells me that the recommendation will probably be able to stand because it actually will be included. It's planned to be included in the long-term plan anyway. So I'm happy to get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation if there's no questions of Richard. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, John. Happy for anybody to speak for or against this motion before I put the motion. Take silence that you're ready to vote. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against? That motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Councillors, I'll take you to page 41 in your report, which is the Windstorm after action review. James, if you can talk us through that, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you're all aware, we had a red windstorm warning in October last year, particularly had high impact in Kaikoura and Hiranui districts. This is just the after-action review following that, and I'll just go through a few key points before looking at the recommendations. So firstly, the state of emergency in this case was declared preemptively after both FENS and police chiefs came to me requesting that we have that consideration with the mayors, resulting in a presentation to the Minister of Emergency Management and Recovery, who made the declaration for us because mayors were still not sworn in. As you know, as I said, Hiranui and Kaikoura were particularly hard hit, resulting in lots of trees down, roading, power and telecommunications damage, as well as damage to public and private infrastructure. We have done a regional-wide after-action review with support from the agencies and the territorial authorities impacted, and we're using this process called OIL, or Observations, Insights, Lessons Identified and Lessons Learned now. And this is a structured way of reviewing events that have happened. Key points sort of coming out of that and things that we want to work on. One is the regional roading status map has now been embedded. It's been used numerous times and it's working to great effect. We still do have those ongoing challenges of road controlling authorities being able to put the data into it, and just encourage you to make sure that your road controlling authorities, that you keep reminding staff to keep that updated. We would like to see it eventually become more reliable to be public facing, but we do have to do more work before we can create it as a public facing guide. Eventually we'd like to feed it up into Google so that that actually when we reroute traffic, we're actually rerouting them on routes that actually work. So that's a piece of work. The Rural Advisory Group's been well supported, is functioning well. Just as an aside, the Rural Rapid Damage Impact Assessment tool that we've developed is starting to be rolled out nationally now, and was used in Southland, used in Otago, it's been used in Nelson, Wellington, and then recently up in the North Island with the most recent set of weather events. So that's a bit of a tick in the box, pat on the back for us, I think. Our regional common operating pitch has reached a maturity now where we're sort of pausing development. We're starting to embed it into our use across the region, and then we'll start to look at what sorts of improvements we need to make to it at that point. But it's being used today for the response in Banks Peninsula. Some other lessons identified there. One is that we reconvene our movement control workshop. These aren't recommendations to you, these are recommendations that we'll do. So we'll reconvene that movement control workshop and complete some work that needs to be done there. It started, it didn't quite get finished following the 2021 mid-Canterbury floods. There's a recommendation that we engage with cell companies with a letter, and I'll explain more about that later, basically to try and get better information from them during emergencies. And then one of just exploring more how we might respond to red weather warnings in the future. And, you know, based on recent events this week with the Banks Peninsula, I think there's actually some protocols we've got to put in place around orange weather warnings as well, which, as you know, we get somewhere in Canterbury about every 3 weeks at the moment, if not quicker, but there's an expectation from the Minister that we do something. The letters to cell phone companies, I'm sure you're aware that, you know, over multiple events, we find it really difficult to get good information out of the telecommunication providers, and what we're really looking for is that a surety that we can have 111 services, that we're able to send emergency mobile alerts, and generally speaking they are good at doing that, but we just want the certainty that we can. But then we know that residents, you know, need to be able to connect with their networks to let people know that they're safe and they're well. But to do other, you know, perhaps less critical things, but still important, like ordering pharmaceuticals and things like that.
Just to add into that, it is critical for our telemeter data on rivers, and so one thing for the public, another thing for us sitting there having no visibility of what's coming at us, and that is critical to this organisation, our rivers teams, our flood team, the rest of it, and we are constantly being let down by cell towers and connectivity, so critical again when we write to those entities of what we need as an organisation to provide the best service we can.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sunknall. You're absolutely right, and you know that's a key part of our submission on the EM bill as well. And then there's a part, bullet point B there is the need for us to actually understand the live status of networks. So what we're wanting to do is we want to, and it's been recommended by the Chief Executive of NEMA, that we write a letter to the three main telecommunication providers, asking, and to not be attack them or as such, but to ask them to enter into a regional conversation around how we can work together to get better information. We're experiencing it right at the moment with Chorus in in Banks Peninsula where a fibre optic cable was broken, and trying to find out from them how long it was going to take to fix and what they were doing about it. Being slightly disappointed when you see the likes of Orion going through to Little River to do repairs, and Chorus saying, "Oh no, we can't go." You go, one can, one can't. Why? So we want to explore that. We want to work with them. We don't want to antagonise them or anything, but we do want to form a better relationship with our communications companies. And the letter that we send would have the intent to do that. You'll see on the recommendations there that what we're looking for is you to receive the report, and then just to delegate authority to Murray to be able to. We'll create the letter, but then for Murray to sign it and send it off. Thank you.
Is there any questions of the report? I mean, I can't help but reiterate the messaging that James has just given us. We've all got examples, and it's come through in some of the lessons learned from this most recent, but I'm sure that, as you say, Banks Peninsula, but we can all cite issues within our communities, and I would totally support that advocacy. It's our obligation to do that. So, I think that's a really good move that we should take. So thank you. I'll go to you and then Lydia.
I made the point yesterday in our ECAN submission to the Select Committee is, in my time here, 10 years of civil defence, we started with Haranui Kaikoura and the issue of connectivity, and nothing has changed in 10 years. Looked at Gabrielle. Yes, people tried to put generators in, but they were flogged the next day sort of thing, or they were drowned underwater. So there have been attempts, but nothing has really been achieved over a 10-year period, and yet we continue to write the letters and bang on the doors. So we just need to continue.
Thank you. It's definitely our duty. Thank you, Lydia.
Murray, I was just going to say I'm happy to move. I think it's really important, that advocacy piece from us, and our cell tower resilience is crucial for especially our rural and our isolated places. If you can't be in touch with people, that's a real concern when you're talking risk and emergency management. So, yeah.
Do have a mover to the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. Happy to receive any any debate around this, but if there's nothing more, I'll put the motion as written, and we've got that outcome for that. So all in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion's carried. Thank you.
Just one of the things that I discovered yesterday when working with Chorus, and this will be one of the things that we will chase up with us. This is not for the minutes, but I think it's important that you understand what the telecommunications companies understand is their level of service that's expected of them from government as a lifeline utility, is that they provide a 111 service and the ability to do emergency mobile alerting. And for this current event in Banks Peninsula, that service was still available. It was lost for about 2 hours and then back up again. So we've got the challenge of them understanding that that's them meeting the level of service that's required. However, we know that society's different now, and Lydia, you just said it before. Our society is different, and it expects communications, and it needs it. So, why wouldn't it's never guaranteed. It's like power's never guaranteed. But we just want to get a better understanding of restoration times and those sorts of things, and work with them on those assumptions of what the levels of service might be in a collaborative way, rather than what appears to be, from my perspective, hammering on them and grumbling about them to ministers and all sorts of other people each time an event happens. So I hope that's okay just to raise that with you and to explain more about the direction we want to go.
I think one of the other important messaging that I read in this report was actually the process of that review incorporated so many of our strategic partners with the police and the St John and the New Zealand Health. I mean, we're advocating on their behalf as much as we are for our communities that we represent. So thank you. So that takes us through to the next pages in our report, our agenda, page 60, which is the Civil Defence Management, what is it? Where are we? Group report. Thank you. So who we got? Who's going to do that?
I'll do
that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is just acknowledgement of the items that we've had in progress as agreed to by the Joint Committee. There's only one there, and that is just what you've agreed to about looking at the work program for recovery. So we've completed that today. We'll go green. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's relatively simple. We're just looking for a move and a second if there's no further questions. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig. And all in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion's carried. Thank you. That takes us through to page 63. And James, I'm going to ask you to report on this one as well. Thank you.
Right. So this one's about the emergency management bill submission. As you will know, because you've all been involved in the process, the submission was workshopped with the mayors, and then there was a further opportunity that was actually extended a bit longer because we got a reprieve from when we had to submit it. No further information came from you following that. There was some minor typos and things fixed up, and it was submitted on the 13th of February. Just following on from that process, we've now got an invite to an oral presentation to the Select Committee, and I've been working with John and Murray about that, and it's likely to be next Wednesday the 25th that we do that presentation to the Select Committee. Happy to take any questions, but I'm just wondering, Ollie and Murray, whether we should do just a retrospectively approve the submission. Is that appropriate or not?
Yeah, Blake just asked me the same question, but it's not like we can't not accept it because it's already gone.
It was gone.
So.
All right. Disregard that one.
So if everybody heard that, so it's not necessary to put in a retrospective acceptance of the submission because it's actually already gone.
And
Correct?
also because it was a Canterbury Regional Council submission, so the council has already...
Okay. Yeah, so and it's sitting under Environment Canterbury Regional Council. Thank you. So is there any questions of James in regard to the report that we've got in front of us? If that being the case, happy to move it. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Nigel. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you.
Just ask a question in making the oral submission, if you all, because of course you will be aware of everything that's in the submission, are there any particular points that any of you would like to see us emphasise in that conversation? We have our 10 minutes. We have a summary of what we've put in the submission, but I thought worth asking mayors if there were any particular points at the forefront of their minds that you might like to see us accentuate. Yep.
Thank you. I think I'm happy to receive that over the next few days. I think James and John and myself will have a conversation ahead of that to pick out the key points. And just for information of the Joint Committee, I'm unable to attend the 25th, and I've asked John to speak and James in support to that submission. I'm fully booked on that day. Thank you.
I have created a summary of the submission. I shared it with John earlier, and I think with you, Marie. I'll share that with all of you to help just guide that. It doesn't actually do the prioritisation, but it's a pretty clear summary of our submission.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you, everybody. Now on page 65, a report, and if I can invite Simon Chambers to the table to provide us with the NEMA Regional Emergency Report. So thank you, Simon. Welcome to you, and we look forward to your report. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of amendments, or one amendment in addition to the paper as tabled at the moment. As you're probably aware, the last 6 weeks we've been responding across the country for events that have been occurring. As a result, the Select Committee decided to extend the submissions for the EM bill to the 15th of February. However, they did do the hearings from the 12th, so they've already had started the hearings in place. And the addition is really as a result of the ongoing events that we've seen over the last 6 weeks. The government has appointed Minister Chris Pink as an Associate Minister to the Emergency Management and Recovery portfolio to assist Minister Mark Mitchell. And that's about it. Thanks very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Simon. You've all read the report. Is there any questions you have of Simon to clarify what you've heard or what's been written in regard to the report? Thank you, Craig. Are you willing to move that? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. I'll put that motion. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against that motion. We have now, I'm going to ask James to speak to this. This is the second quarter report. So thank you, James.
Yeah, so the second quarter financial report is here. Just in quick summary, there was a small cost to the October windstorm for the group budget. Expect there will be another small cost for this current event we're having at the moment. The Emergency Management Training Centre has had both greater revenue and expenditure due to the funding that we get for NEMA. That funding wasn't included in the budget, so it comes and it goes, but balances out. And as expected, the Lifelines budget is overspent due to additional work, but we will manage that within our budget. At the end of the year, we won't be overspent. And there's still readiness activities underspend due to staff vacancies. We're due to establish our MTech manager position in the next couple of weeks, and then we've got one other vacant position other than ones that we've already talked about, so that'll help with that. Happy to take any questions on the budget.
Thanks, team. Is there any questions for James in regard to that report? Oh, very quiet today. That being the case, someone like to move? Someone like to second? Thank you, Liz. Thank you. A question? Thank you.
I could take the privilege of being the new girl at this table. I think my question is around the reserve policy, and should we be reviewing that? Because it is good, I think, to have reserves for emergencies, which is quite pertinent to what this group is for. So I think it's something that should be looked at for what we're doing, especially if we're looking at the reforms and the changes that are going to be made to emergency management, all the other stuff.
Thank you. Good question. The previous joint committee, so last triennium, raised that exact same question and asked us that we consider it in the long-term planning process. It currently sits at $750,000, $750,000, and I think the previous joint committee was suggesting that it raise, but they didn't give an indicator of to what. So we will work that or we will come to you with a recommendation in the long-term planning process. I think the feeling is probably 1.2, something like that.
Reason for what might seem a reasonably low reserve is the ability of the Environment Canterbury balance sheet. So the 750,000 effectively allows the officers to pick up the phone and get stuff done immediately without having to find the funding. So the initial funding is kicker and get going, and then the Environment Canterbury balance sheet will do whatever it needs to do to fund the works through time, and then obviously some of the clawback from government or wherever, those sorts of things. But it is a pertinent question with simplification for local government, where that balance sheet might lie into the future. So I think your question is valid, but in the interim, Environment Canterbury picks up the slack until such time. So, but yeah, in the longer term, it is worth that question of where that balance sheet might lie that could be exercised if required.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question. So we're indicating that we've got 370,000 underspend and there will be a surplus. Just the assumption, rightly or wrongly, that surplus will be added to the reserve at the end. So we're likely to see an increase in the current reserve balance for the long-term plan. And fingers crossed. It's not drawn on.
Thanks, team, for those clarifying questions. It's important to understand that. So, but having said that, if there's no further questions, we do have the resolution in front of us. If someone willing to move, thank you, Liz. I'll come back to you. Thank you, John. If there's no further questions, all in agreement to that, please say aye. Aye. Those against? That motion's carried. Thank you. And we're looking at page 72 in your report. James, thank you.
Yeah, so just my group controllers report here, and I first of all want to start off by just acknowledging Christchurch City's event happening on Banks Peninsula at the moment. It is significant. It's 300 millimetres of rain in 48 hours in Akaroa, and then spread across particularly the southern side of Banks Peninsula is significant. Teams are out today starting to do the more detailed assessments on properties and welfare assessments, and it's going to take time to clean up. It's a bigger impact than the May last year Banks Peninsula storm. So I just want to acknowledge that. Then we've got in here just acknowledgement of the North Island rains that we had a few weeks ago and have continued, and just acknowledge the fact that we have had Richard's been there twice as Group Recovery Manager, and we've had welfare staff and from our office up in Northland, and then recently we had some of Christchurch City staff supporting Tairāwhiti in their transition. So it's really important, and it's great the way our region leans forward to help other regions. The Tsunami Blue Zone transition, we presented, I think it was the August 2005 meeting, we presented to you on this topic. We're now in the process of working with each council around the replacement of the old red, yellow and orange zones that we had with the new blue zones. One of the future joint committee meetings will come to you showing what we've worked on and decided on. The intent is that we, around October or November 26 is when we will start to roll them out, but we'll make sure that that's done in a way that we can let the public know and let you know before we do it. There's just some notes there about what Helen is talking to your staff about in regards to those blue zones. Group exercising, there's just a table of the exercises that are completed this last calendar year. There's a couple still to go through this year, and we're working out dates and the topic of the exercise for this coming year, and we'll let you know as soon as we've worked that one out. Group work programs there's a few things that we have completed. The regional evacuation plan's done, the welfare framework that we presented, I think, a couple of meetings ago, Richard's recovery exercise and the regional assurance project. All big projects, all big pieces of work have all been completed. There are delays in the tsunami response and recovery plan, and now that we've got one planner back in the office and shortly advertising for another, we'll get that back on track. And another one that we thought was quite a high priority is establishing communities of practice. We'll begin working on that next week at our next Emergency Managers Forum. And also at the next Emergency Managers Forum, we'll start exploring what the 26-27 work program looks like, and we will present that to the next Coordinating Executive Group and Joint Committees for your approval. And then lastly here, I've just got a comment about yellow pages. We do spend money each year on advertising in the yellow pages. It's not a lot. It's about $14,000. However, I could do quite a bit with that for other things. We know that a lot of other groups are not advertising in there. All it's got these days is just actually each of the council's contact details. That's it. We'll do a bit of work to try and understand the value of it and come back, but we'll do it this year. But I'd like to present a recommendation to you around the future of it, which might say continue, or it might say let's stop.
I think Lydia wants to say something.
I'm sorry, you'll get used to me. I've got no poker face, and you'll see everything I'm thinking on my face. But does anyone here actually have the yellow pages anymore?
None of us are old enough.
No, that's right. And I just think you could definitely put that money into advertising elsewhere, that you would get a bigger impact on people than it's a dying book. I don't know the last time that I actually had one in my house. In fact, we can't even get a landline. So, yeah, times are changing.
James, when do you want a direct steer on this spend, or you're happy to take some feedback now?
I'll bring it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there'll be a formal paper, is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can you find out how many yellow pages booklets are actually delivered in the Canterbury region? Because I've done it as a fundraiser where we've delivered them, but you don't know if people actually take 2 years ago. But you don't know where they go, if they just go straight in the bin. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. We can find that out. We can find that out, and we know there's a what's called the Christchurch version, which is most of Canterbury, and then there's a South Canterbury version for our South Canterbury colleagues. I can find out how much is done, but yeah, I think most people put them in the recycling these days.
Okay, we'll look forward to that paper. Can I just come back to the exercising? The 12-month exercise program. When you develop the 26-27 program, will it just be the same themes that will happen or there'll be changing themes depending on almost like lessons learnt scenario stuff?
Yeah, the themes will change. And that's what we haven't determined for this year, what the theme will be. There's also a wee bit of debate around the time of the year that we do it, and it seems to be that October, November period that we do it. We previously did it in August, September, and we got feedback that didn't work from a council time point of view. And then we've had May suggested. We know that doesn't work from a long-term planning point of view. So I don't think any time that exercising is a good time necessarily. So I think we'll stick with that timing. Typically we work over a 3-year program. The first year, which was this year, this particular one, where each of the councils choose a scenario of their own desire and exercise something that's important to your council. In the second year, we start to try and consolidate down a little bit, and it will probably mean that we have 2 exercises, one in, say, South Canterbury and one in North Canterbury, where we start to have to work together a little bit more. And then the third tier is when we try to do a whole of region exercise, and that sometimes coincides with the national exercises. So that's the intent. So the intent next year is that we're sort of working a little bit more closer together, but it's not the whole region at once. Hope that helps.
Yeah. It's good to get that sort of overview of that sort of 3-year cycle. Thank you. Another question? Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you. Sorry, I was so wrapped up in the yellow pages. I didn't look at the questions that I'd actually written here about the work program. And so I just wanted to understand the work program there and maybe some of the history around it. So the items that are on there, have some of them been carried over? And do you carry over what you don't complete in this work program into next year's work program?
Yeah, if they haven't been carried over, well, if they haven't been completed, they'll carry over. but we'll also then reprioritise within what new stuff gets added to it. So the Emergency Managers Forum this week is going to concentrate on, next week, on what that looks like. This is the first time in many years that we presented a Canterbury group work program to the KEG or the Joint Committee. We've always had a group office work program, but we haven't had a shared program that's all of ours. This is the first year, and it was ambitious, and we certainly didn't get through all of it. For your information, the items that are in red in this instance were ones that, as group controller, I prioritised. I'd always look for feedback from you on things that you think are priorities, but these were ones, the red ones were ones that I've prioritised, and still think they're pretty important things. And most of them are actually, we're getting there with them. Yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, Thank you. Thanks, Lydia. Is there any other questions in regard to this report from James? No? Thank you, James. I think you've fleshed out some direction going forward in regard to the report that we've got in front of us as well. But we do have a recommendation on one more thing. Yeah.
One thing that I was not so successful at with this one last year was getting either usually a KEG sponsor or a Joint Committee sponsor for some of them. So next, when I come and present in May, I will ask for some sponsors for some, please. Thank you.
Okay, we'll look forward to that report in May. Thank you. We've had some questions, and we have a recommendation in front of us, but I need a mover and a seconder that we received that. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Nigel. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion's carried. Thank you. And this takes us to our final paper today. And gosh, we've done really well, thank you. But I know some of the acknowledgements have been recognised today, but I'm going to throw it open if you've got issues that you want to raise from your communities of interest that might be inserted into a work stream, and we've had a little bit of that forward planning from James. But I also, as chair of this committee, wanted to acknowledge the input that we have from our various staff, but particularly staff here and in the city around, our good friends over on Banks Peninsula. But you've talked about some of these the issues, the Tairāwhiti and, across our district. And I know when we had the windstorm back in October, when Minister Mitchell visited us, I think he said in 20 months he had 19 significant wind or weather events, and that really hasn't stopped since October. So the issues that we are facing on behalf of our communities are real, and they're impacting not only families, communities, and in our districts and regions. So I just want to acknowledge the frequency and the intensity of these weather events that are playing in our minds, and we always need to be on a continuous journey of learning new lessons, doing things better, being more reactive to positive change. So I just want to acknowledge everybody for that, but I also want to acknowledge the support I've had over the last month or so from Councillor John Sunkel. I know, John, this is an area that you've got a huge amount of passion for, and I appreciated our conversation the other day and on the phone, and I hope we can continue to do that for actually the well-being of the mahi that we're all doing together. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. But I'm happy to open the floor if there's anything there before we look at our next meeting. Is there anything that hasn't been raised today that you would like us to hear or share from Civil Defence Emergency Management position? You all pretty comfortable around the table?
A question of James, CBR, chemical, those kind of deals. Do we do any work around chemical, biological, radiation? Is there a place for something in that space, or is that getting beyond our thinking?
Ooh, good question, John.
I had the opportunity to talk to someone that might be able to provide advice. I'm Just wondering.
The chemical and biological weapon side of things isn't something that's acknowledged in our regional risk plan. The terrorism side of things is recognised in the group risk plan. While most of our work is in the natural hazard environment, we know that, and certainly the Minister and NEMA are now expected to be able to respond to cyber attacks. And we saw that with the, what was it called? It was last year, about June. I can't remember the name of it. We all experienced it anyway. There's an expectation that civil defence emergency management will be able to respond to those things. We will. We haven't really, well, from a regional group office perspective, not done much planning for it, but we know that we'd work with our partner agencies, we'd support you as councils. We would carry out our bit, which is very much coordination and welfare of our community. But no, John, we haven't sort of explored it a lot.
The reason I ask is there is that potential for something to happen, and in my conversation with this person who remained nameless, what can happen and what is happening in other jurisdictions around the world, the ability to drop something into the dry ice blowers at a sport event. Okay, so you've got 30,000 people at the stadium in Christchurch. Something dropped into one of them provides exposure to 30,000 people. The idea of anthrax or the like, again, being dropped into something like that at a sports event in Auckland for an All Black test. You've got 50,000 people flying in from all over New Zealand and some from Australia, how those things play out. In some of those exercises, police did an exercise on these same matters, and the team then came in at lunchtime, and the police said, well, this is where we've got to, this is great, what do you think? And I said, well, you're all dead. Why? Because you did not recognise the space. And I think of maybe the Selwyn team or the Christchurch team or those first responders who are first there. I just wonder how much training our first responders get within that kind of CBR space to think about what some of those events might be into the future. It's just a thought, and I can ask a question if it's a possibility of something coming to this or wherever.
Oh, just a little bit. I'll follow on, John. I know both FENS Police and St John have specialist teams that do work in this space, but it probably does. Well, it's fair to say that it doesn't go much further than those specialist teams. It has been a part of the conversation with the new stadium over here. As to, large stadium, 50,000 people capacity, and it relates to the conversations that we had earlier today with the SIS. How do we manage it? And there's some learning to do, particularly with our partners.
I guess in many ways, if it becomes high on the agenda, it becomes a work program item as well, perhaps. So, but I guess I'll leave that with you because that's your area of specialty, and you can bring it to us as you've got more information available to you, James. Thank you. So, if there's no further discussion today, I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. Our next meeting will.
We need to do the motion.
Sorry, I forgot about it. Yeah, I was jumping ahead. Someone like to move the... Thank you, John. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Liz. All in agreement that we receive that report, please say aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. So our next meeting will be on Thursday the 28th of May 2026 here, and we will just close with a Mihi Whakakapi. So kia tarangamare, kia runga i ngā iwi Aotearoa. Let your peace reign on all people of the world. Thank you, Will. Thank you, James. And thank you for the staff for supporting us today. Meeting is closed. Thank you.